Welcome, welcome, welcome to another episode of Cyrus's podcast. Today, I have Paul Thompson, commercial real estate guru and fund manager. Man, I appreciate you for being on today.
Hey, thanks for having me. I always like to do these. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, man. So, you know, I always like to kind of start with like, hey, look, I know what you're doing now. We'll kind of talk about that, but I want to go before you got into real estate. I know
Yeah.
you were in a more corporate America, right?
Yep.
Like, I
Yep.
want to talk about like how did you like what did you do before real estate?
Yeah. Before I got started involved in real estate, I was a traditional corporate America drone. I just did my thing, tried to earn a living, didn't know any better. I was just a classic wage earner and did a little bit of investing on the side in the stock market, but really only thought about real estate as something that other people did, and just I had this kind of this fantasy about starting a business or owning a portfolio of properties, but I had no idea how to do it, and it just stayed a fantasy for the longest time.
So so when what were you doing in like corporate? Like, what were you doing
Yep.
on a daily basis? Like, what was your job beforehand?
Yeah, I was trained as a engineer. I had a computer engineering degree, and worked in IT. I worked in the as an internet service provider, and so we helped make the internet in our little corner of the world possible, which was a cool business and overall not that bad of a life. But it was weird that if when I stopped going to work, they stopped paying me, and so they really expected me to be there and show up
Yeah.
no matter what. It was like you had to be button seat and you had to do the job. And the job, just the more
Yeah.
I got into it, the higher I went in the corporate ladder. I realized I was like my ladder was against the wrong wall, and I really needed to figure out some other way to make an income.
So that's such an interesting concept because, like, it's I talk to so many different people about, hey, where they came from beforehand and so on and so forth. And
Yeah,
like, what do you think was holding you? Like, you said it earlier, you knew about real estate, but it was
right.
some sort of fantasy. Like, what do you think was holding you back?
Fear, doubt, and uncertainty. I just didn't know what to do. I was afraid I was going to fall flat on my face. I didn't want to go out there and try and do something and not do well and be that guy that filed bankruptcy because he got out over his skis. And I was just not certain, and I lacked the confidence and lacked the knowledge on what to do next. And it wasn't until I had a really big wake-up call where I realized my job really wasn't as important, or I wasn't as important to my job as I thought I was. And so I was given a very firm ultimatum when I wanted to extend a vacation. It's like, oh, we don't do that here. Like, you can't stay at the beach another week and work from the beach house. You need to be button seat, and I expect you to be back here Monday at 8 o'clock. Click. It's like, whoa, like I've been here for like 15 years. I'm like a middle manager.
Yeah.
I always get great reviews. I'm a great contributor. I do amazing things for the company, but I didn't matter when it boiled down to it. And I was like, okay, thank you very much. That was the kick in the pants I needed to remind me that no one cares about your outcome more than you do.
That's such an interesting thing, right? Like, you devote yourself for all these years. You said 15 years, and then all of a sudden, you say, "Hey, I can't do exactly what you want me to do for 1 week," right? Not
Yeah,
even, and they say you're either here or you're out of here. That's
pretty
insane.
much.
That's crazy to me. And so that happened, and then you're like, that was your trigger moment, basically,
Yep.
to be like, wait a second, like, let me look at this. And
Hmm.
then is that is that how you got over that fear of really fear of failure, right? Like, or was
Yeah.
it something else? Like, did someone else push you? Like, how did you get over
No.
that fear?
That was enough of a kick in the pants as I realized that I was vulnerable and that I was a single income family and that I didn't really matter as much as I thought I did and that I was expendable. and I could be let go at any moment. And if I wanted to maintain the lifestyle that I had started living with my family, I would probably have to move in order to get another job in the same industry. And I really didn't want to move. My family and I are very happy where we live, and we really wanted to stay where we were. And I just got really irritated by the fact that I wasn't in control, and kind of the scales were removed from my eyes, and I realized, dude, like you are not in control. Like you are on the razor's edge of not having a good income.
Wow, interesting. And and then so then you're like, all right, cool. Let me go buy a house now. Or
Yep.
like how did that work? Like like you thought about it. It's like we all know. I mean, so many people go through this, right? Like so many people go through. I remember when I was buying my first investment property, like I was freaking out, right?
Yeah.
Like I'm because I didn't know what was going to happen, how it was working, and I do this for a living, like
Right.
and
Yeah.
and I was selling these things, and I was still scared. So like the fact that you're coming from like literally a total different an engineer background, really software, so on and so forth. Like, how did you get over that fear? Did you have someone that was helping you? Did you have a mentor? Did you just like what did that look like?
Great question. So when I first started figuring out like, okay, I need to do something here in this real estate space, but I'm not really
Yeah.
sure what to do. I did all this typical stuff people do. I went to bigger pockets, I listened to podcasts, I read books, and I filled, a modicum of that information gap with some of these outside resources that are very good. But when it comes down to it, like you need somebody showing you the way. It's really helpful to have someone show you the way.
Yeah.
And people always say, go find a mentor, go find a mentor. But the problem with a mentor is they're not sitting out on the corner saying, hey, people just come on over free of charge. I'll just tell you everything I want. It's not the way it works. So I thought, what could I do to find a mentor? So I went on the internet and searched for people who were doing the real estate business in markets that were near me, but not in my same market, because I didn't want to make them think I was going to be a competitor. So I live in Arkansas, a fairly small market, but I live in Little Rock, and I went and found another investor that just happened to have a website. And I emailed him and said, hey, I'm willing to exchange time, money, like I help you in your business in exchange that I get to learn the background of the business a little bit. And sure enough, he called me back up and said, yeah, I'll help you, but you do this first. You have to go and buy The Richest Man in Babylon, and you have to get the physical copy. You have to read it, highlight it, and then write a 3-page handwritten essay and mail it to my PO box. I was like, man,
I
that's like
love that.
some Mr. Miyagi wax on, wax off stuff. I was like, okay, what do I have to lose? So I did it. And over the next 2 years, I probably read and wrote probably 9 or 10 essays for him on various books that he suggested that I read.
Wow, that's amazing. That's one of my favorite books, by the way, The Richest Man in Babylon. It's like
Yeah.
I absolutely love that book. Um, but that's very interesting. So obviously he paid you a huge salary to come work with him,
Right,
and that's
right,
how
right,
you
right.
learned everything, right? Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
Um, so you went and you really volunteered your time,
Yeah.
right? Like you just studied under him. You volunteered your time. This is what like I think is super underrated. I think people all the time, they're always like, oh, I got to find a mentor. I got to find a mentor. And then they go to mentor and they're like, okay, can I have a job? And it's like, no, like, the most successful people that I know have gone to somebody and said, what can I do for you?
Yep.
Right. Like it's coming from a space of service. And you said that, and I don't want to skip over that. Your first thing that you told them is like, hey, what can I do? How can I help you in your business that you can help me versus, hey, you know what? Teach me everything you have,
Yeah,
which
the
is super
worst
powerful.
thing, people come to me now all the time and say, hey, I want to pick your brain. I was like, dude, like that's not the way you approach somebody who has gained a certain degree of success. Like they are busy, they got a lot of stuff going on. Time is their most valuable asset. You need to offer them a solution. You need to free their time up. You don't need to steal their time and ask them to pick your brain. No, that's
Yeah.
the wrong entry.
Yep, 100%. I love that. I love that that concept. So now you said how many years you said over the next couple of years you did all these essays. How many
Mhm.
years were you basically like before you started really doing it yourself?
So I talked to him in I don't know, April or May. I probably should go back and look. And I bought my first property in August of that same year. But then I just kept getting better, right? I kept, taking up.
I love that.
And one of the things that he did is he said, here's a bunch of books to read, write some essays. And he says, what is your learning plan? And I was like, well, I'll read some books and I'll go to 1 or 2 courses a year. He's like, well, on that pace, it's going to take you 5 to 10 years to get you where you want to go. If you want to get where you want to go in 2 to 3 years, you need to go to 6 courses a year. And here's some I suggest you go to. I was like, oh, okay.
Oh
So
wow.
sure enough, I went to like six, it's like Dykes Bodiford and Pete Fortunato, and they're like these grand old men of real estate that have been around for 30 or 40 years. And they have these really inexpensive master classes that are held on the weekend in like Tampa and Atlanta in these like really fairly rundown hotels. And so it's like a hotel room full of 60 people, and they charge you like three or four, $500 to be there. There's no sales pitch, and they just lay it all out. And I went to
Yeah.
probably 30 of those over the next 5 years.
Wow. Wow. And so what you're telling me is that you invested into your education wholeheartedly.
Yes, every single one of us can do
I
this
wrote
business.
Yeah, I wrote something earlier. I just put it on social media, and it's really interesting, but because it goes to this conversation, and it was the most perfect thing you can do is realize that you are imperfect.
Yeah.
And that is the epitome of what we're talking about here, right? Like realizing that like you will you're realizing that you will never ever know everything,
Mm-mm.
but you will continue to chase knowing everything. And like when
Right.
you realize that, I think it's so powerful as an entrepreneur, like as an individual. And it seems like this mentor of yours really taught you that about the industry. And so now fast forwarding, you've built a great career, you've built a great platform for yourself. Like, talk to me about like what that looked like. So you started doing well, you started closing deals, getting more
Mhm.
investment properties, so on and so forth. But how do you go from just an investor to like a fund manager, running a fund, teaching people how to do this? Like, how do you do that?
Yeah, so a big part of it was that I do have this desire to learn and this kind of like intellectual humility that I don't know it all and I want to be able to know it all. So I'm constantly learning something new. And
Love
the
that.
way I try to reestablish what I know is that I share what I know. I've always done that. Even when I was in junior high and high school, that's how I would study for tests. I would take the assignment and I would teach one of my friends. And if I could teach one of my friends the material, then that means that I knew it probably almost as well as the teacher, right? So, to teach is to learn twice. And so I've always been a way, it's one of the ways that I kind of reinforce what I've learned. And in the process of doing that, people will come up to me and say, so dude, like, how did you like get 30 properties as quick as you did? And I was like, well, I mean, there are other people who've probably done a lot better than I did, but here's the principles that I've learned and I would share it. And before long, people would say, dude, I would really like to pay you for what you just told me. Like, so we can sit down. I understand you don't want me to pick your brain, but like, let's talk and I'll pay you for it. I was like, wait a second, I might have a little business here. And so I started coaching people because people were asking me for what I learned. And before long, you just, that power just compounds on itself and you grow your network and people start asking for your services and your experience to share it with them. And every time I kind of feel like I jump up a step, I pay it forward to people who are, one step below, but I'm always casting my gaze up. What's the next thing I can learn?
I love that. I love that. And so and I mean that's really how it's grown for me, to be honest. Like very organically, right? Like you help one person, then that person goes and says, "Look at what I've done," right? And also like
Yeah.
it's pretty freaking cool. Like to be able to like in my opinion, like to be able to take someone that has never owned a property or is wanting to invest and like help them build financial freedom. Are you kidding me? We're changing
Yeah.
generations. Like
Yeah.
it's insane to me, right? And so I absolutely love that. Now you have a fund. What does that fund invest into?
So we can fund in mortgages. So our fund invests in mortgages in a third party. So what we do is we issue loans to very specific niche short-term scenarios, typically land or construction loans or transactional lending. And so what we offer our investors basically passive income. So accredited investors can come to the fund, earn a 12% to 15% return, and then we turn around that and parlay that into loans that we're making, 18 to 21% on.
Wow. And how did you come up with that idea?
Well, when you get into the business, you realize before long, when you're going up the levels of the hierarchy, like the money's in the money. Like it is the fundamental resource that we all are running around trying to find more of so we can buy more property. And all these lenders are out there lending money and they're making money on that money. And they went and borrowed it for somebody else. I thought, well, instead of just borrowing money from the lenders and paying interest, why don't I go and be the interest, back to the rich man of Babylon, like you want to be
Yeah.
the one earning interest, not paying interest.
Yeah. I love that. I love that. And then now where look, you've accumulated a huge portfolio of properties. You've created a fund that's very successful. Like, what's next for Paul?
Well, right now I am in the middle of growing a real estate 101 brand around helping people do commercial real estate. So we're helping people buy multifamily projects. We're helping people find storage units, basically these fundamental asset class in the commercial world that I feel are that I'm very I have a lot of upside, right? I'm bullish on the fact that people need a place to live and they're going to store their stuff in areas. I'm not so confident in retail or in office space, which is when people hear commercial, they tend to think office space. And
Yeah.
like that's probably not where you probably should be going, especially as a newbie. But I'm very big on the fact that there's a huge housing shortage and we have become a nation of renters. And there are people who are very happily living in Class A, Class B apartment complexes, and I try and find those in really good markets that have a growing install base of jobs and just like the population that keeps growing. Like you think Nashville or Dallas or Atlanta, these places are just booming and they can't build fast enough.
And how are you are you specifically now at this point in your career, are you specifically analyzing those deals? Do you
Mhm.
have a team of people that analyze those deals? How does that look?
Oh, good question. So fundamentally, like who's doing the underwriting on all these deals? So
Yeah.
I will do the first blush at it, and I'll say, okay, I think this is what the numbers are, and we have models that do that for us. And then once we get under a contract, then we do basically like an audit of their financials, and then that's when I'll bring in a pro and say like find the mistake because there's always a mistake, and I'm not the guy that's going to find it, but I'll hire somebody else who
Yeah.
will. Yeah.
I love that. I love that. Um, I'm not even going to skip over that because I think this is a whole nother like golden nugget that I think a lot of people don't realize. What you just said, like I'm not the best at it, but I'll find the person that is. Like
Hmm.
I think I think the best leaders in the world, the best business owners, like for instance, like I'm not the best at everything that I do. I just know the person that is the best at it,
Right.
and I have no issue bringing that person on and making sure they're taken care of because that's how we're going to scale, right? It's going from
Yep.
it's going from 0 to 60 in a Toyota Corolla or 0 to 60 in a Lambo. Like I'd rather go in the Lambo. I'd rather go
Right.
faster, right? So like for me, I'd rather spend more money to get the right people because I'm going to get to the where I want to go quicker,
Hmm.
right? So I love that you said that, and I think that's a huge golden nugget for a lot of people. Um, now I have two more questions for you.
Okay.
Two more pretty interesting questions for you. One first is where do people find you? Where can people connect with you?
Yeah, the best place to find me online is basically Instagram or TikTok or any of those kind of places. I'm at Paul David Thompson. I have the curse of a common name, so I use all three of them. I'm guessing there's not like a whole bunch of Cyrus. I'm not even sure how to pronounce your last name.
Moseni.
Moseni. Like, how
Yeah.
many Cyrus Mosenis in the world are there? Probably not very many. There's a whole bunch of Thompsons and even Paul David Thompson. So I had to go out there and get the Paul David Thompson everywhere I could.
So can you spell that out for me so
Yeah,
that
it's
because it's audio as well?
yep, Paul, Paul, David, like King David, David, and Thompson. The common spelling is Thompson.
Love it. Appreciate that. Now, my last question for you is somebody is working in corporate America, feeling stuck,
Uh,
not sure what to do.
yep.
What's your one piece of advice you'd give them right now?
Okay, so and I have been in this spot. I have been in corporate America and I felt very stuck and didn't know what to do. And I didn't have any new ideas. And I thought, what could I do that would make an income? And I just realized that real estate is like the dummies, like like anybody can do real estate, right? Because it's the most fundamental business that we all need, and it doesn't take an MBA to understand it. Like we all live in a house or an apartment or a mobile home, and we understand fundamentally the basics of what people want to live, how people want to live. And it's the one thing that every single person in the world uses every day. And it is a really good gateway to getting into a business that has all these rules set up for you, all the tax advantages, all these loan products. They're just sitting out there waiting for you to learn how to put them to use. And so, if there's any kind of lingering doubt, there have been some really basic people who have gone out and made a bunch of money in real estate. If they can do it, so can you.
Love that. I love that. I appreciate you for being on today. I appreciate you for sharing. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
All right, cool.